Hello everyone, Gob Scholar here. On the 11th of September 2001, the world watched as the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center were struck by hijacked airliners. In the 102 minutes between the first impact and the final collapse of the North Tower, thousands of lives and the post-Cold War world was changed forever. While many were able to evacuate, more than 1,000 people were trapped above the impact zone in the North Tower. None of them survived. Because there are no first-hand accounts from this zone, their final moments can only be understood through the analysis of known facts, forensic evidence, and the final desperate communications they sent to the outside world. In this video, we will clinically examine the conditions for those trapped above the 91st floor of the North Tower, WTC-1, piecing together what happened in that impossible situation based solely on reputable and established sources. At 8:46 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767, was deliberately crashed into the northern facade of the World Trade Center's North Tower. The aircraft, carrying an estimated 10,000 gallons of jet fuel, struck between the 93rd and the 99th floors. The impact was catastrophic. It instantly severed the building's central core, destroying all three of the tower's stairwells, stairways A, B, and C, within the impact zone. Every single elevator serving the upper floors was rendered inoperable, either by severing of their cables or the immediate loss of power. For anyone on the 92nd floor and above, every path to escape was gone. The impact had created a sealed-off zone, an island in the sky from which there was no way down. The people trapped in the North Tower were left inside a burning, structurally compromised building for a total of 102 minutes, until its own collapse at 10:28 a.m. The exact number of people killed in the North Tower is not definitively known, but the consensus estimates that between 1,355 and 1,426 individuals were at or above the point of impact. Hundreds were killed instantly, either by the impact of the aircraft itself or the ensuing fireball that erupted through the offices. The force of the explosion channeled enough jet fuel down elevator shafts to cause secondary explosions as low as the main lobby. The majority, however, survived the initial crash. An estimated 800 people were left alive but trapped. This included not only those floors 93 to 110, but also approximately 70 people on the 92nd floor whose exit routes were blocked by collapsed debris from above. The upper floors of the North Tower were a hub of global businesses. The investment bank Cantor Fitzgerald occupied floors 101 to 105. They lost 658 employees, more than any other single employer on that day. Immediately below them, on floors 93 to 100, Marsh & McLean lost 295 employees and 63 consultants. At the very top of the tower, on the 106th and 107th floor, were the Windows of the World restaurant. At the time of the attack, it was hosting 72 staff, 76 guests and contractors, and a business conference for 81 attendees. Among those present was Neil Levin, the executive director of the Port Authority, the agency that owned the complex. The situation at Windows on the World provides a specific documented insight into the conditions above the 91st floor. Following the 8:46 a.m. impact, Assistant General Manager Christine Lander made a series of desperate calls to the Port Authority police. She reported that they were trapped and that smoke was beginning to fill the restaurant. When one reads the transcripts of her calls, it is made clear the air conditions on 106th and 107th floors are deteriorating very quickly immediately after the impact. These calls represent the final known communications from the restaurant. After approximately 9:40 a.m, no further calls were made or received, suggesting that conditions had become unsurvivable. Everyone present in the restaurant and at the conference died, either from smoke inhalation, the eventual collapse, or by falling or jumping from the building. At least 5 individuals were witnessed falling from the restaurant's windows. It should also be noted that communications were very difficult within the building during the catastrophe, and this almost certainly did play a role to some degree in the lack of communications after 9:40 a.m. In a strange twist of fate, the World Trade Center's new lessor, Larry Silverstein, who held regular breakfast meetings at the restaurant, was not present that morning. His wife had insisted he attend a doctor's appointment, a decision that, thankfully, saved his life. As the fires intensified and smoke filled the upper floors, trapped occupants were faced with an unbearable choice. The NYC Medical Examiner's Office does not classify these individuals as jumpers, a term reserved for suicide. Instead, they state the victims were forced out by the smoke and flames or blown out. The official manner of death for all 9/11 victims, including those who fell, is listed as homicide. An estimated 100 to 200 people fell or jumped to their deaths, the vast majority from the North Tower. In contrast, the South Tower's impact was lower and off-center, leaving one stairwell, Stairwell A, miraculously passable. This allowed 18 people from above the impact to escape. The fire was less widespread, offering more space for the fewer number of trapped people to move away from the worst of the conditions. For those in the North Tower, a tragically false hope was the rooftop rescue. Many made their way upwards, only to find the roof doors locked. A command to electronically release the locks was sent from a security station on the 22nd floor, but the impact had already destroyed the necessary systems. Even if the doors had opened, the intense heat, thick smoke, and the Tower 1 antenna would have made any helicopter landing extremely difficult, if not impossible. Despite this, at least one helicopter crew was willing to at least try a rescue if they saw anyone on the roofs. Alas, no one appeared, and the conditions would have made such an attempt, at best, near impossible. So what would it have been like for those trapped above the 91st floor? Based on the evidence, we can reconstruct a probable timeline of experiences. The impact would have been a moment of extreme violence, a deafening explosion, a sudden jarring lurch of the entire building, and an instantaneous plunge into darkness for many as the power was cut. A wave of intense heat and pressure would have followed, with smoke and the smell of jet fuel immediately beginning to permeate the floors. The initial response would have been shock, followed by attempts to evacuate. People would have quickly discovered that the stairwells were destroyed and the elevators were dead. Phone calls to emergency services and loved ones would have begun, reporting their location and their predicament, as the record shows. Within the first 10 minutes, it would have been clear to everyone that they were trapped. The smoke containing toxic compounds from burning plastics, electronics, and jet fuel would have become thicker and more arid. Breathing would have become difficult very quickly. The heat from the fires below would be rising, turning the upper floors into a convection oven. People would have begun to congregate in areas with the cleanest air, often breaking windows to escape the suffocating smoke. This action, while providing temporary relief in some cases, would have also drawn the fire towards the new source of oxygen, intensifying the blaze. Groups would have moved from office to office, hallway to hallway, searching for a viable space to survive as conditions deteriorated. Around this time, the last calls from the windows of the world ceased. This suggested that on the highest floors, conditions had become almost completely untenable. The environment would have been one of extreme heat, near zero visibility due to smoke, and the air that was becoming increasingly unbreathable. It is during this final phase that most of the falls and jumps would have occurred. The choice was no longer between living and dying, but between the manner of one's death, suffocation and burning, or a fall from over 1,000 feet. For many, the fall became the only way to escape the immediate horror of the fires. It stands to reason that the majority of the casualties up until the collapse was due to smoke inhalation. Personally, I think it stands to reason that the majority of the people that were trapped up there were probably already deceased before the collapse occurred, largely due to the smoke inhalation. I think most of the survivors, if not all, are the ones that you can see in the windows trying to get some air. I think anybody deeper within the building at that point was probably lost to us. For 102 minutes, the steel frame of the North Tower, weakened by the initial impact and softened by the intense prolonged fire, had been holding on. At 10:28 AM, the structure finally failed. Those still alive in the trap zones would have experienced a sudden, violent lurch as the floors above them began to pancake. The collapse itself would have been terrifyingly swift, lasting only a matter of seconds. No one from above the 91st floor of the North Tower survived to tell their story. Their final 102 minutes was spent in a situation that grew progressively more hopeless from beginning to end. They were cut off from the world with no chance of rescue and no means of escape. By examining the timeline, the structural damage and the forensic evidence, we can gain a clinical understanding of the physical conditions they faced, though of course we'll never truly understand what they faced from an experiential point of view. But it is in the final phone calls, the eyewitness accounts from the ground and the sheer number of those lost that we can understand the true human scale of the tragedy that unfolded in the sky above Manhattan that day. The story of those trapped in the North Tower is a vital part of the history of 9/11. Approximately 1,355 human lives and stories were ended in that sealed off zone, and while none of them can tell their story themselves, we can still honour them by looking at the facts, piecing together their horrific experiences and giving them our understanding and our remembrance. May they all rest in peace, and may those they left behind find their own peace. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative and to your liking, please like and subscribe. If you made it to the end of the video, please know how deeply I appreciate your time and attention. I'm wishing you all well. Ta-ta.